They've been home all night, Mrs. Henderson whispered. I saw Dean shoveling the walk at 6. My breath caught. My hands went numb. I was standing in the snow, holding presents and cookies, while my family laughed behind locked doors, pretending I didn't exist. The key didn't fit. My name was gone from the group chat, and my messages, deleted like I'd never been born. They didn't forget me. They erased me. And on Christmas Eve. But here's the part they never saw coming. I disappeared. No calls, no trace. Until the letter arrived and took everything back. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Elise Marin Delaney, and I'm 33 years old. I live alone in a third-floor walk-up in Portland, spending my weekends wrapped in worn quilts with secondhand books and Earl Grey tea. My older brother Dean, the darling of our mother Caroline's eye, has the perfect life, executive position at the bank, house in the suburbs, and a permanent seat at every family gathering. I was always the quiet one, the dreamer who moved 400 miles away to find herself. At least that's how Mom describes it. Her lips pursed just so. Every Christmas, I make the long drive home with carefully wrapped presents and stubborn hope, though my hands still shake when I ring the doorbell. My grandmother Martha used to squeeze my shoulder and whisper that distance brings clarity. But let me start from the beginning. Last Christmas started like all the others. Me behind the wheel of my old Subaru, watching snowflakes dance in my headlights as I pushed through the storm. The back seat was crammed with presents wrapped in silver paper, and the passenger seat held tins of the same cookies I'd been bringing since college. Chocolate chip for Dean, shortbread for Mom, and ginger snaps that reminded me of baking with Grandma Martha in her warm kitchen. You know that feeling when you're almost home and your chest gets tight with a mix of hope and dread? That's what hit me as I turned onto Maple Street. The snow was really coming down now, coating everything in white silence. Usually the porch light would be glowing, a beacon through the storm. But tonight, darkness greeted me. I pulled into the driveway checking my phone. No messages, no missed calls. The house loomed silent, every window dark. Maybe they'd lost power? But no. The neighbors' Christmas lights twinkled through the falling snow, casting colored shadows across untouched drifts. They probably went to pick up last-minute groceries, I muttered, gathering my purse and the first armload of gifts. The key stuck in the lock. I jiggled it, tried again. Nothing. My fingers trembled as I dug out my phone, breath fogging in the frigid air. Mom's phone went straight to voicemail. Same with Dean's. The cold crept through my coat as I stood there, presents growing heavy in my arms. I opened our family group chat, thinking I'd missed a change of plans. My heart stopped. The chat was there, but my name wasn't. Just Mom and Dean's wife, Sarah. My messages from last week, confirming Christmas plans, asking what time to arrive, had vanished. Like I'd never been part of the conversation at all. Back in my car, I cranked the heat and stared at the dark house. The same house where I'd grown up, where my height marks still traced the kitchen doorframe, where Dean and I had built blanket forts on rainy Sundays. Snow gathered on my windshield as minutes ticked by. 9 o'clock, 10, 11. Still no lights, no movement, no response to my texts. My phone battery dwindled to 15% as I scrolled through old photos, trying to piece together when things had changed. There was Dean's promotion party last spring. I hadn't been invited, but Mom posted pictures. Thanksgiving at Sarah's parents' place. I'd assumed my invitation got lost in the mail. But sitting here now, watching ice crystals form on my windows, a different pattern emerged. They hadn't forgotten me. They'd chosen to erase me. Past midnight, my teeth chattering despite the car's weakening heater, I watched headlights sweep the street. A taxi pulled up next door. Mrs. Henderson, my old piano teacher, climbed out with her suitcase. She waved when she spotted my car. "Elise? Is that you, dear?" She crunched through the snow to my window. "What are you doing sitting out here in this weather?" My voice cracked. "I'm just waiting for my family to get home." Her face changed, just for a second, but I caught it. Pity mixed with something else. Knowledge. "Oh, honey, they've been home all evening. I saw them carrying in groceries before the storm hit." Dean was shoveling the walk around 6. The last piece clicked into place. They were inside, warm and together, while I sat frozen in the dark. They'd changed the locks, deleted my messages, chosen Christmas Eve to show me exactly where I stood. Mrs. Henderson invited me in for tea, but I couldn't bear her kindness. Not then. I backed out of the driveway, presents still piled in my back seat, cookie tins growing cold. The house disappeared in my rearview mirror, swallowed by swirling snow. Morning found me at a truck stop 50 miles away, watching the sun rise over gas pumps and scattered semis. My phone was dead. My fingers were numb. And something inside me, that hopeful, hurting part that kept reaching for connection, had gone quiet. They thought they could erase me with changed locks and deleted messages. Sitting there, watching dawn paint the snow-heavy sky, I felt the last echo of my grandmother's words. You see things clearer when you stand a little farther away. Now I saw with perfect clarity. They'd locked me out on Christmas Eve, thinking that would be the end of the story. The first week after Christmas, I went dark, methodical, like unplugging strings of holiday lights one by one. Changed my phone number, blocked their emails, deleted every social media account. You know that saying about burning bridges? I wasn't burning them. I was vanishing, like morning fog burning off a lake. I found a studio apartment across town, the kind of place where neighbors don't ask questions. The landlord didn't blink when I paid 3 months' rent in cash under a different name. The walls were bare except for water stains, and the radiator clanked all night. But it was mine. No memories, no expectations, no ghosts of family dinners or childhood promises. Have you ever tried to erase yourself? It's harder than you'd think. Every form wants emergency contacts. Every doctor's office asks about family medical history. The grocery store clerk makes small talk about holiday plans. Each time I felt that familiar ache, like pressing on a bruise to see if it still hurts. January crawled by. Then February. I worked remotely, spoke to no one except my cat. Yes, I became that person, and ordered everything online. My old friends texted, then called, then finally gave up. Their concern felt like sandpaper on raw skin. I couldn't explain what had happened without crumbling, and I was done crumbling. The storage unit was my last loose end. I'd been paying for it since moving out of my old apartment, telling myself I'd sort through everything someday. Now, with winter melting into a gray March, I stood in the concrete corridor, key in hand. Time to let go of whatever was behind that metal door. The musty smell hit me first. Cardboard boxes labeled in my hurried handwriting. Kitchen, books, winter clothes. I worked systematically, sorting into piles. Donate, trash, keep. 3 hours in, my hands dusty and cold, I reached for a box shoved against the back wall. Gran's things, I'd scrawled across the top. My throat tightened. I'd packed this box right after her funeral 2 years ago, when Mom was too busy consoling Dean to help clean out the house. The box had almost gone to Goodwill last fall, but something made me keep it. Inside, tissue paper crackled around old photo frames. A jewelry box held her costume brooches, the ones she'd let me play with during Sunday visits. At the bottom, wrapped in a faded silk scarf, lay an envelope. My hands started shaking. I recognized that handwriting instantly, looping cursive that somehow managed to look both elegant and mischievous, just like Gran herself. The envelope was sealed, yellowed at the edges. My name stretched across the front in faded blue ink. The paper felt warm against my fingers, like it held some living energy. Or maybe that was just my pulse racing. I hadn't expected to find anything from her, not after the way they'd cleared out her house so quickly after the funeral. Mom had handled all the paperwork, the will, the estate. She'd said there was nothing left to sort through. But here was this envelope, hidden in my box, waiting like a time capsule. Or a bomb. I sank onto a stack of boxes, the letter heavy in my lap. The storage unit's fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Through the thin walls, I heard cars passing on the highway, people moving forward while I sat frozen in this concrete cave of memories. Should I open it? The thought of seeing Gran's words, hearing her voice in my head after these empty months, it felt like standing at the edge of a very high cliff. What if it was just a birthday card I'd forgotten to open? What if it was nothing? What if it was everything? I slipped the envelope into my coat pocket. Not here. Not under these harsh lights with the smell of dust and cardboard around me. Some messages needed the right moment, the right space to be heard. Walking out, I left most of the boxes behind. Let the past stay where it belonged. But that envelope pressed against my ribs like a secret, warm and waiting, all the way home. I waited until midnight, settled into my favorite reading chair, tea growing cold on the side table. I finally slid my finger under the envelope's seal. The paper split with a soft tear that seemed too loud in my silent apartment. You know that moment when your whole world shifts? It doesn't come with dramatic music or lightning bolts. Sometimes it's just you, alone in a pool of lamplight, holding papers that change everything. 3 documents fell into my lap. The first was a letter, dated 6 months before Gran died. The second, a property deed. The third, my hand started shaking when I realized what it was. Her will. "My dearest Elise," the letter began. Gran's familiar handwriting brought back the scent of her kitchen, cinnamon and coffee, always a plate of cookies waiting. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, and things haven't worked out the way they should have. You were always the one who saw clearly, even when it hurt, so I'm trusting you with the truth." I had to pause, press my knuckles against my lips. 2 years of missing her crashed over me like a wave. "The house on Maple Street. Your grandfather's house, my house. I'm leaving it to you, all of it. The furniture, the photos, even those silly snow globes you used to line up on the windowsill. Dean will fight it, your mother too. They've always thought the house should stay with the son, tradition and all that nonsense. But you, my quiet one, you're the only one who ever really lived there with me, who sat in the garden and named the birds, who knew which floorboard creaked outside the kitchen." My chest felt too tight. I remembered those mornings, early sun streaming through Gran's lace curtains, learning to bake bread or plant herbs while she told stories about her own childhood. Dean was always too busy, too important for those quiet moments. The property deed was next. Legal language I had to read 3 times before it sank in. The house, transferred solely to me upon her death. The will confirmed it in careful detail. Not just the house, but everything in it. Her final gift, her final truth. But Dean lived there now, had been living there since last spring. I'd seen the Christmas photos on mutual friends' social media. My brother playing host in Gran's living room. Mom arranging presents under the tree I'd helped Gran decorate every year of my childhood. How? I spread the papers across my lap, comparing dates, signatures. The will was properly notarized, witnessed, clear as day. There was no room for misinterpretation. I was the heir to everything. Unless, my hands went cold, unless they'd filed a different will, an older one maybe, before Gran made her final changes. The thought hit like a punch to the gut. Dean worked at the bank, handled estate paperwork all the time. He would know exactly how to make it look legitimate. I grabbed my laptop, fingers clumsy with urgency. Gran's lawyer, James Morton, had handled her affairs for decades. His office was still there on Main Street, according to the website. I didn't care that it was nearly 1 a.m. I typed out an email, then deleted it. Too easy to ignore. Instead, I found the office phone number and programmed it into my phone. First thing tomorrow, I'd have answers. My mind raced, counting backwards through the months. When had Dean moved in? April? May? Right after that big promotion at work, when he'd said something about keeping the family home in the family. I'd been happy for him then, assumed Mom and the lawyers had worked everything out. I picked up the deed again, studying Gran's signature. All those Sunday afternoons, watching her sign birthday cards at her desk, the way she always dotted her eyes with tiny circles. This was real. This was true. And somewhere, there was proof of exactly how my brother had stolen it from me. The clock ticked past 1 a.m. In 6 hours, Morton's law office would open. I could barely breathe past the questions crowding my throat. Did Mom know? Had she helped Dean file the paperwork? Was this why they'd cut me out? Because Gran had chosen me instead of the golden child? I laid the papers out on my coffee table, lined up like evidence. The deed, the will, the letter. Proof that I wasn't crazy, wasn't forgotten. I was erased on purpose. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I picked up my phone, pulled up the law office's number again. 1 call. That's all it would take to start unraveling their perfect lie. For 3 days straight, I called Morton's office every hour on the hour. Each time, his receptionist gave me the same sugary response. "Mr. Morton is in meetings. He'll return your call as soon as possible." Yeah, right. You know that feeling when you're being politely stonewalled? When someone's voice stays professional but clearly means go away? That's exactly what I got. On day 4, Morton finally picked up. My heart nearly stopped. "Miss Delaney," he said, sounding tired and dismissive. "I've reviewed the estate matter thoroughly. The will was properly filed and executed. There's nothing more to be done. But I have the original will right here," I insisted, papers crackling in my grip. It's notarized, witnessed. Miss Delaney. His voice turned to ice. The matter is closed. I suggest you respect your family's privacy and move forward. Click. I stared at my phone, throat burning. Move forward? From theft? From lies? The urge to scream built in my chest until my hands shook. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Is this Elise Delaney? The voice was older, female, with an edge that meant business. This is Gloria Medina. I'm Mr. Morton's senior legal assistant. We need to talk, but not here. Meet me at Dot's Diner tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Back booth. Before I could respond, she hung up. I remembered Gloria vaguely from childhood visits to Morton's office. Silver-streaked hair always in a tight bun, cat-eye glasses, zero tolerance for nonsense. But why would she reach out now? The next morning, I arrived at Dot's early, the familiar smell of coffee and maple syrup bringing back memories of weekend breakfasts with Gran. Gloria was already there, ramrod straight in a charcoal blazer, reading glasses perched on her nose as she studied a manila folder. Sit, she said without looking up. Coffee? I slid into the booth. Black, please. She signaled the waitress, then fixed me with a laser-sharp stare. I've worked for James Morton for 32 years. In that time, I've filed every will, every deed, every trust document that's crossed his desk, including both versions of your grandmother's will. My heart skipped. Both versions? Gloria's mouth tightened. She opened the folder and slid a document across the table. This is the valid will, signed and notarized 8 months before your grandmother passed. See the date? I did. And the signature, Gran's unmistakable handwriting, complete with those tiny circles over the eyes. Now look at this. Another document appeared. This is what your brother filed with the county. Notice anything? The papers were nearly identical, except for the date and the beneficiary. The older will left everything to Dean. He submitted the outdated version, I whispered. But how? Because he could. Gloria's voice dripped contempt. He works at First National, handles estate transactions, knows exactly which clerks won't look too closely at filing dates. Probably smiled that golden boy smile of his and said he was just tidying up loose ends. My coffee arrived. I wrapped my hands around the mug, trying to steady them. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired. Gloria removed her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. Tired of watching entitled men in expensive suits decide what's best for everyone else. Your grandmother knew exactly what she was doing when she changed that will. She told me herself, said you were the only one who saw the real value in that house, not just its market price. The memory of Gran's garden hit me so hard I had to close my eyes. The late summer roses she'd taught me to prune, the herb bed we'd planned together, the bird feeder we'd painted blue because it matched the sky. Here's what you need to understand, Gloria continued, her voice low and urgent. If you move too fast, Dean will bury the evidence. He'll lose files, call in favors, make sure that original will disappears forever. Timing is everything. So what do I do? She closed the folder with precise movements. Right now, nothing. We document. We wait. We build a case so solid he can't slip through the cracks. She pulled out a business card, wrote a number on the back. This is my personal line. Don't call the office again. Don't let them know you've spoken to me, and whatever you do, don't confront your brother. Not yet. I took the card, feeling its weight like a key in my palm. Why risk helping me? Gloria stood, smoothing her blazer. Because your grandmother was right about you. You see things clearer when you stand a little farther away. She placed a $5 bill on the table for her untouched coffee. And right now, you're exactly where you need to be. Gloria and I met twice more that week, always at different diners, always before sunrise. She'd arrive first, that manila folder growing thicker each time, while I brought my own expanding collection of notes and questions. We needed a timeline, she explained, a strategy that would leave no room for Dean's smooth talking or legal gymnastics. Christmas Eve, she said on our third meeting, tapping her pen against her coffee cup. 1 year to the day they locked you out. That's when we file. I traced the rim of my mug. Why wait so long? Because revenge served cold isn't just satisfying, it's bulletproof. She pulled out a legal pad covered in her precise handwriting. We need bank records showing when Dean took possession, property tax payments, utility transfers, every document that proves he knowingly filed the wrong will. And if we move too soon? He'll bury everything faster than you can say family trust. No, we do this right. She slid the pad toward me. Here's your homework. Start with the county records office, then the tax assessor. Build the paper trail backward. Remember how I said Gran always told me I saw things clearer from far away? Turns out distance was exactly what I needed. Every morning I'd visit a different office, request another record. Every afternoon, I'd spread my findings across my tiny kitchen table, piecing together the puzzle of Dean's deception. The smell of instant coffee and dusty papers became my constant companions. You know that feeling when you're so focused, hours slip by like minutes? That was me, lost in a world of dates and signatures and official stamps. 2 months in, Gloria called with a breakthrough. Your brother's bank statements, she said, her voice tight with satisfaction. 3 large withdrawals right after the house transfer. He's been selling off your grandmother's antiques. My stomach clenched. Gran's Victorian writing desk, her Tiffany lamp, the gilt-framed mirror that had hung in the foyer since before I was born. All gone. But the real shock came 3 days later. I was at my storage unit, digging through the last box of family papers. The cardboard was soft with age, crumbling at the corners. Inside, beneath a stack of old birthday cards and school reports, I found a shoebox I didn't recognize. The lid was held on with a rubber band so brittle it snapped when I touched it. Inside, layered between sheets of tissue paper, were documents about Grandpa's business, the small but successful printing company he'd built from scratch. I remembered visiting his shop as a kid, the sharp smell of ink and paper, the rhythmic hum of the presses. He'd let me feed blank sheets into the machines, showing me how to hold them just right so they wouldn't jam. Someday, he'd say, this'll all be part of your inheritance, sweetheart. You've got printer's ink in your blood. But he died when I was 19, and the business was sold soon after. I never questioned it. I was too deep in college applications and dreams of moving away. Now, holding these papers, something felt wrong. I pulled out the bill of sale, dated just 2 months after Grandpa's funeral. My eyes skimmed the legal language until they caught on a signature at the bottom. My signature. Except, I never signed anything. My hands started shaking. I grabbed my wallet, pulled out my driver's license, and held it next to the document. The signature on the sale papers was close, really close, but the E had an extra loop, and the final Y curved the wrong way. Someone had forged my name. The room seemed to tilt. I fumbled for my phone, barely able to see the screen through the blur of angry tears. Gloria answered on the first ring. What's wrong? They didn't just steal Gran's house, I managed. They sold Grandpa's business, using my signature. Silence hummed across the line. Then, in a voice like steel, don't move. Don't touch anything else. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I sat on the concrete floor, staring at that forged signature, remembering Grandpa's ink-stained hands and proud smile. They hadn't just erased me from Christmas. They'd erased me from my own inheritance. Twice. The storage unit's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I waited for Gloria, that fake signature burning into my vision like an afterimage. Each minute that passed crystallized my resolve. This wasn't just about getting Gran's house back anymore. This was about everything they'd taken. I sat there on the cold concrete floor of my storage unit, surrounded by the paper ghosts of my family's betrayal, while Gloria's heels clicked closer down the hallway. My whole body felt numb, except for this burning spot right in the center of my chest. You know that moment when your world shifts and suddenly everything makes horrible sense? That's where I was. Gloria appeared in the doorway, her silver hair catching the fluorescent light. Without a word, she knelt beside me, designer pantsuit and all, and started examining the documents I'd spread out. Your college fund, she said after a long moment. That's where the money went, isn't it? I nodded, remembering Mom's proud smile when she'd handed me that first tuition check. They used my own inheritance to pay for my education, then acted like it was some generous gift they'd sacrificed for. Classic misdirection. Gloria's voice was gentle, but her eyes were sharp. Make you feel grateful for something that was already yours. The memory of all those thank you notes I'd written hit me like a punch to the gut. Every semester, I'd gushed about how blessed I was to have such a supportive family. Meanwhile, they'd been sitting in my grandmother's house, surrounded by my grandfather's money, probably laughing at how easy it had been to fool me. I need a minute, I managed, standing up on shaky legs. The storage unit's walls seemed to press in closer. Actually, no, I need a plan. Gloria was already pulling out her phone. First, we document everything, then we start making calls. The next 4 hours became a blur of activity. We photographed every document, every signature. Gloria knew a handwriting expert who could officially verify the forgery. She had me record a statement about never signing the business sale papers, then got it notarized on the spot by a friend who worked nearby. "Your brother's smart," Gloria said as we worked, "but he's careless. Probably never thought you'd find these papers. And look here." She pointed to a date on one of the documents. "He used the same notary for the business sale that he later used for filing the fake will. That's a pattern we can use." I remembered something. Dean's Bank. They require dual verification for large transactions, right? So there must be records of who approved the business sale money going into my college account. Now you're thinking like an investigator. Gloria's smile was fierce. "We'll subpoena those records when the time comes." As the afternoon wore on, I started making calls of my own. My hands shook less with each one. I contacted the county recorder's office, requesting certified copies of every document filed under our family name. I called the state business licensing board about historical ownership records for Grandpa's company. But it was the call to Grandpa's old office manager that broke something loose inside me. She remembered everything, including the day Dean and Mom came in to handle the paperwork after Grandpa died. "I always wondered why you weren't there," she said, her voice crackling through the speaker. "Your grandfather talked about you running that place someday, had a whole succession plan drawn up." The tears that came weren't sad ones. They were pure rage. Gloria watched me end the call, her expression knowing. "Ready to talk strategy?" I wiped my eyes. "More than ready." She pulled out a fresh legal pad. "We've got property theft, document fraud, and misappropriation of inherited assets. 3 separate crimes, 3 separate agencies that'll want to investigate, and 3 separate ways to make them pay." The words came out harder than I'd intended, but Gloria didn't flinch. "Exactly. But we have to be precise. Your brother's a banker. He knows how to bury financial trails. Your mother's got social connections that could make this messy. We need everything documented, verified, and time-stamped." I looked around at the scattered papers, each one a piece of evidence pointing to years of calculated betrayal. They used my future to steal my past. Then we'll use their past to steal their future. Gloria's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "But we do it by the book. Every I dotted, every T crossed. When we're done, they won't just lose the house. They'll lose everything they built on lies." I gathered up the documents, handling them like the weapons they were. The numbness was gone, replaced by a clarity so sharp it almost hurt. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice, cold, clean, and by the numbers. They'd taught me well, really. All those years of making me feel small had just shown me how to move quietly. All those lessons about family image had taught me exactly where to aim. I turned to Gloria. "Let's get to work." November brought the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. I spent most days huddled in my tiny studio, surrounded by stacks of legal documents that Gloria and I had meticulously prepared. Every morning, I'd wake up and review them again, checking for holes, weaknesses, anything they might use against us. You know that feeling when you've rehearsed something so many times that you start doubting basic words? That's what happened with these papers. The more I stared at them, the more they seemed to blur and shift, like maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. "Your brother's response deadline will be 14 days, Gloria had explained, walking me through each form. "The property reversion is automatic once we prove the will fraud. The business sale investigation triggers separately." I'd nodded along, but something inside me had started to crack. What if 14 days wasn't enough? What if they found some legal escape hatch we hadn't considered? My phone buzzed. Another news alert about the upcoming holiday season. I should have known better than to keep those activated. There it was, a community page photo of the annual Christmas tree lighting downtown. And there they were, standing in front of my grandmother's house. Dean, Mom, their perfect little circle of friends, all raising glasses on my porch. The caption read, "Local banker hosts neighborhood holiday kickoff." My throat closed up. I dropped the phone like it burned. Remember being a kid when you'd build something out of blocks, so careful and precise, only to have someone knock it down? That hollow feeling in your stomach? That mix of hurt and rage? This was worse. They weren't just living in my house. They were building whole new memories there, painting over mine like I'd never existed. I called Gloria, my voice shaking. "Maybe we should wait. What if—" Stop right there, she cut in. I know that tone. You're spiraling. But what if we're wrong? What if the courts don't care? Rich white banker versus disappeared sister. Who do you think they'll believe? The evidence, Gloria said firmly. They'll believe the evidence, which is exactly why we spent months building an airtight case. I sank onto my bed, watching snow start to fall outside. I saw them online. They look so normal, happy, like they don't even remember what they did. Of course they look happy. Thieves usually do until the moment they're caught. Gloria's voice softened slightly. Listen to me, Elise. You're not crazy. You're not wrong. And you're definitely not alone. I've watched families like yours operate for 30 years. They count on doubt. They feed on it. But will getting the house back fix anything? The question came out small, childlike. Will it make up for everything else? No, Gloria said simply. Nothing fixes betrayal. But justice? Justice matters. And sweetheart, I just finished printing the final set of court filings. Everything's ready. Every document, every exhibit, every piece of evidence, it's all here, waiting for your signature. My hand went to my grandmother's letter, which I kept in my jacket pocket. The paper had grown soft from constant handling, but her words remained clear. To my Elise, who sees with her heart but thinks with her head. They're going to fight back, I whispered. Let them, Gloria said. We have truth on our side. And truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. I looked at the stack of papers on my desk, our careful, quiet weapon. When do we file? Tomorrow morning, first thing. Gloria paused. Unless you're having second thoughts? The snow was falling harder now, coating the world in clean, cold white, like nature's own fresh start. No, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice had become. No second thoughts, just making peace with what comes next. Good. Because I've got the filing fees ready and a clerk who owes me a favor. The moment we submit these papers, there's no turning back. I touched my grandmother's letter again, feeling its worn edges. I know. And Gloria, thank you for believing me, for helping me make this real. Don't thank me yet, she said, but I could hear her smile. Thank me when we're done. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow we start the avalanche. I hung up and walked to the window, watching the snow erase the day's footprints from the sidewalk below. Tomorrow we'd file the papers. Tomorrow we'd start the clock on their 14 days of borrowed time. But tonight belonged to the quiet, to the calm before whatever storm was coming. December 24th dawned gray and hushed, the kind of winter morning where even the air feels like it's holding its breath. I sat in my car outside the county courthouse, watching early snowflakes drift against the windshield. The manila envelope on my passenger seat held everything: the reinstated will, the property deed, the eviction notice. 1 year's worth of work wrapped in craft paper and legal terminology. You know that moment before you jump into cold water? When your muscles tense and your mind screams, wait? That's how it felt, staring at that envelope. Gloria tapped on my window, startling me. She wore her signature blazer and a determined expression that somehow made her seem taller than her 5'4" frame. I rolled down the window. Ready? She asked. No, I admitted, then reached for the envelope anyway. But I'm doing it. The courthouse steps were already salted, but I still walked carefully. Inside, the holiday-emptied building echoed with our footsteps. The clerk's office smelled like coffee and old paper. Some things never change, even on Christmas Eve. Filing for case number 2023 CV 4891, Gloria announced, sliding our paperwork across the counter. Her voice carried the weight of 30 years' experience, brooking no argument. The clerk, younger than me, probably working holidays for extra pay, stamped everything without looking up. Certified copies will be ready in 20 minutes. I almost laughed. 20 minutes to officially reclaim what was always mine. 20 minutes to start the avalanche that would bury Dean's careful lies. I'll handle the service of process personally, Gloria said as we waited. Better to keep this clean. Professional. My hands shook slightly as I addressed the manila envelope that would go to Dean. The same house number I'd written on Christmas cards for years now felt foreign under my pen. You don't have to watch me mail it, I told Gloria. I won't chicken out. She adjusted her glasses. Oh, I know, but I'm your counsel of record now. Everything by the book. The post office was nearly empty. One elderly man buying stamps, a harried mother shipping last-minute packages. The clerk behind the counter looked bored until Gloria requested certified mail with signature confirmation. I could have added tracking, could have given myself a way to know exactly when Dean would receive it. But as I paid for postage, I deliberately declined the tracking option. Some things you have to release completely. You're sure about delivering the news in person? I asked Gloria as we walked back to our cars. Absolutely. Your brother needs to understand this isn't some clerical error he can charm his way out of. She paused, studying my face. Are you sure you don't want to be there? No. The word came out harder than I meant it to. I mean, I can't. I need to be somewhere else when it happens. Anywhere else? Gloria nodded, no judgment in her expression. Then go. I'll handle everything here. But Elise? She touched my arm lightly. Don't doubt yourself now. What they did, the forged documents, the stolen inheritance, cutting you out completely, those were choices. This is just consequences. I hugged her quickly, surprising us both. Thank you. For everything. Save your thanks for when we're done, she said, but squeezed my shoulder before letting go. Now go, I've got a Christmas Eve delivery to make. I drove aimlessly for a while, watching holiday shoppers hurry through the snow with last-minute bags, families bundled in winter coats, children pointing at decorated windows. A year ago, I'd been the one rushing to bring gifts to people who'd already decided I didn't exist. My phone buzzed. Gloria's text. Notice delivered. In person. To both. It's done. I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. In my mind, I could see it clearly. Gloria standing on my grandmother's porch, backbone straight, extending the official notice. Dean's face shifting from annoyance to disbelief to fury. My mother's performative shock. 14 days. They had 14 days to vacate my grandmother's house. My house. I turned off my phone before the urge to ask Gloria for details could overwhelm me. Some conversations you don't need to hear. Some reactions you don't need to witness. Instead, I drove to my small apartment, where a cup of tea and a library book waited. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering everything in clean, quiet white. 3 days after Christmas, I was organizing my tiny kitchen when Gloria called. Her voice had that careful neutrality that made my stomach tighten. Your brother paid me a visit this morning, she said. Quite the performance. I set down the mug I'd been holding. What happened? Oh, the usual threats. Legal action against the firm, professional complaints. He even suggested I might want to consider early retirement. She chuckled, but there was steel underneath. I've been dealing with men like your brother for 40 years, Elise. They all think they're the first to try intimidation. The familiar ice of anxiety crept up my spine. Did he? Don't you worry about me. Gloria cut me off gently. I've already filed his visit in my incident report. Every word documented, every threat noted. He's only digging himself deeper. I sank into my kitchen chair, remembering how Dean used to tower over me during arguments, using his height like a weapon. He always did think he could talk his way out of anything. Well, he won't talk his way out of this. The fraud report went to his bank this morning. My breath caught. Already? Internal audit doesn't mess around with falsified documents, especially when they involve property sales. Gloria's voice held a hint of satisfaction. They pulled him into a meeting about an hour ago. I glanced at the clock, just past 2. Dean would be at his desk now, probably wearing that navy suit he saved for important clients. Would be, except... Gloria? My voice wavered slightly. How do you know about the meeting? Because I just watched him being escorted out of the building, box in his arms, security beside him, right in front of everyone on his floor. The weight I'd carried for so long, the weight of being the forgotten one, the erased one, suddenly lifted. Just a fraction, but enough to notice. You were there? I asked. Had to file some paperwork at the building next door. Purely coincidental timing. But I could hear her smile. Though I will say, your brother's face was an interesting shade of red. I remembered the Christmas parties Dean hosted at the bank, how he'd post photos of himself playing Santa for the employees' children. Always the golden boy, even at work. He really thought he was untouchable, didn't he? Most people like Dean do. They build their lives on careful lies, then convince themselves the foundation is solid. Gloria paused. But one crack, one pulled thread. And it all unravels, I finished. Exactly. Papers shuffled on her end. Now, he's got about 11 days left to vacate your house. Given today's developments, he might finally realize this isn't going away. I traced the rim of my coffee mug, thinking of the family photos Dean had probably already taken down from Gran's walls. What happens if he doesn't leave? Then we file for formal eviction through the sheriff's office. But somehow, Gloria's tone turned thoughtful. I don't think it'll come to that. Men like Dean care about appearances above all else. And right now, his carefully curated image is crumbling very publicly. She was right. Dean's whole identity was wrapped up in being the responsible one, the successful one, the son who stayed close to home and did everything right. Now, the bank will have to report the fraud, Gloria continued. Standard procedure, which means your brother's professional reputation is over, I finished quietly. For the first time since that frozen Christmas Eve in my car, I felt my shoulders fully relax. The knot that had lived between my shoulder blades for a year began to loosen. Elise? Gloria's voice gentled. Are you all right? I considered the question carefully. Was I all right? My brother had just lost his career. My family was about to lose their home. The careful facade they'd built was cracking apart. But I could breathe. Finally, fully breathe. Yes, I said, and meant it. I think I am. Good. A door closed on her end. Because this is just the beginning. The bank's fraud report will trigger other investigations. Questions will be asked about the business sale, about the forged will. Your mother's social circle is about to get very uncomfortable. I thought of Mom at her church functions, serving on every committee, always camera ready. She won't handle public scandal well. No, Gloria agreed. She won't. 3 days after Dean's very public exit from the bank, Mom launched her counteroffensive. I knew it was coming. She'd never been one to accept defeat gracefully, especially when it came to protecting her perfect son. The first warning came from Gloria, who forwarded me a screenshot from the church's private Facebook group. There was Mom, perfectly coiffed as always, sharing a lengthy post about troubled children and the pain of maternal heartbreak. She didn't name me directly, but the implications were clear. Her wayward daughter had fabricated lies about her beloved brother, all out of jealousy and greed. You know what's funny? I said to Gloria over the phone. She actually thinks people will believe her without question. Just like always. How are you holding up? Gloria asked. I thought about the countless times Mom had rewritten reality to suit her narrative, the way she'd framed Dean's mistakes as youthful spirit, while my achievements were just attention-seeking. Remember that Christmas pageant when I was 12? I'd practiced for weeks to sing the solo, but Mom told everyone I was too nervous and gave the part to Dean's girlfriend instead. I'm okay, I said. Really, it's like watching a magic trick after someone's already explained how it works. The illusion's gone. But Mom wasn't done. She called an emergency meeting with her church committee, the same one she'd chaired for 15 years. I heard about it from Gloria's cousin Martha, who sang in the choir. Mom had prepared a whole presentation about family loyalty and false accusations. She really thought she could control the narrative, I told Gloria the next morning, just like she controlled everything else. Well, she miscalculated, Gloria replied, satisfaction evident in her voice. The committee already knew about the fraud investigation. The bank president's wife is on the board. My coffee nearly went cold as Gloria filled me in. Apparently, Mom stood at the podium, voice trembling with practiced emotion, ready to paint her masterpiece of maternal suffering. But before she could finish her first sentence about false allegations, Margaret Chen, head of the committee, cut her off. They had the bank's preliminary report right there, Gloria said, complete with copies of the forged documents. I closed my eyes, picturing Mom's face. That slight twitch she gets when her control slips. What happened? Margaret asked her to step down from the committee, effective immediately. The words hung there, heavy with decades of karma. Mom, who'd spent years orchestrating perfect church functions, coordinating charity drives, making sure everyone knew how generous and devoted she was, now stood exposed. There's more, Gloria added. The Christmas charity gala she always hosts? They're moving it to the community center this year. I remembered those galas, elaborate affairs where Mom would hold court in her designer dress, directing volunteers and basking in praise. I used to help set up the decorations, carefully following her exact instructions. One year, I suggested moving the gift table to create better flow. She didn't speak to me for 3 days. The ladies' auxiliary is distancing themselves too, Gloria continued. Martha says they're taking a break from social events until spring, which means they're waiting for this to blow over, I translated. Exactly. But with the business fraud going public next week, Gloria let the sentence hang. I didn't need her to finish. The forged sale of Grandpa's business would be part of the official record. Anyone could look it up. Mom's carefully constructed social fortress was crumbling, and for once, she couldn't manipulate the story. Your mother tried calling the church office yesterday, Gloria said. Wanted to discuss misunderstandings about the situation. Let me guess, they were suddenly very busy? Reverend Phillips's secretary said they're booked solid through January. I traced the handle of my mug, remembering all the times Mom had used the church community as her personal audience, how she'd subtly tear others down while building herself up. Always the devoted mother, the pillar of the community, the one who sacrificed everything for her family. You know what's strange? I said quietly. I always thought exposing the truth would feel, I don't know, more satisfying, like some big dramatic moment of justice. And instead, it's just quiet, like watching snow melt. Gloria hummed in understanding. Sometimes the quietest endings hit the hardest. I looked out my window at the December sky, thinking of Mom standing alone in her perfect house, watching her social circle slip away. No dramatic confrontations, no public accusations, just silence. Empty church pews where her admirers used to sit, blank spaces on committee rosters where her name used to be. You're right, I said. The quiet is enough. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. The kind of crystalline December day that Grandma used to say, sparkled like sugar on shortbread. I sat at my kitchen window, watching the sun climb over empty streets, a small package wrapped in brown paper sitting on my counter. You know those moments when your whole life feels like it's balanced on the head of a pin? That's what this morning felt like. The package contained Grandma's favorite snow globe, the one with the tiny Victorian house inside, complete with a miniature wreath on its door. She'd kept it on her bedroom windowsill year-round, not just at Christmas. Because some things, she'd tell me, are too precious to pack away. I'd found it last week, carefully wrapped in one of her soft cardigans at the bottom of that storage box. The same box that had given me her letter, her real will, and the truth about everything else. Now it was time for the globe to go home. Are you sure about this? Gloria had asked yesterday. You could just wait until they're gone and move in properly. But that wasn't the point. This wasn't about living there. Not yet. This was about something else entirely. I drove slowly through the morning quiet, the snow globe secure in its box beside me. The familiar streets of my childhood looked different somehow. Smaller, maybe. Or just less important. The weight of them had lifted somewhere during this past year, leaving behind a strange kind of peace. Remember how Christmas morning used to feel when you were little? That mixture of excitement and terror and hope? That's what was running through my veins as I pulled up to the curb, half a block from my grandmother's house. Their cars were already in the driveway, Dean's sleek sedan, Mom's practical SUV. They'd be inside, probably just sitting down to their traditional breakfast, the one I used to help prepare. The mailbox stood at attention, its red flag down, waiting. I slipped from my car, package in hand, moving as quietly as the fresh snow would allow. The globe's base now held something new, a small wooden plaque I'd had carved with my full name, Elise Marin Delaney. The name my grandmother had chosen for me, over my mother's objections. My boots left precise tracks in the snow as I approached the mailbox. The metal felt cold through my gloves as I lifted the lid. Inside, I placed the package with the same care Grandma had always shown her precious collection. Then I turned and walked away. No note, no explanation, just the globe, my name, and the weight of truth. I spent the rest of the morning in my apartment, reading one of Grandma's old books I'd found in storage. The pages smelled like her house, like cinnamon and wood polish and that particular warmth old books carry. Around noon, my phone buzzed. It's done, Gloria texted. Package was taken inside about an hour ago. I wrapped my hands around my tea mug, letting the warmth seep into my fingers. Thank you, I replied. But Gloria wasn't finished. She had one more gift for me. Driving by now, she wrote. Look what they've done. The photo came through moments later, the front window of my grandmother's house, glowing with warm light. And there, centered perfectly on the sill, sat the snow globe. Even through Gloria's phone camera, I could make out the wooden base with my name facing outward. They'd placed it exactly where Grandma had always kept her favorite pieces, where everyone passing by could see. "Quite a statement," Gloria commented. I stared at the photo for a long time, remembering all the afternoons I'd spent watching Grandma arrange her collection, how she'd tell me stories about each piece while dust motes danced in the sunlight, how she'd let me carefully clean them, one by one, teaching me that precious things deserve gentle hands. "Yes," I texted back. "It is." I didn't need to knock on their door. Didn't need to make demands or issue ultimatums. The snow globe said everything. This house remembers. This house knows. This house was always meant for gentler hands than yours. The light in Gloria's photo caught the globe's glass just right, making the tiny house inside seem to glow, like a beacon, like a promise, like my grandmother's voice whispering, "Some things are too precious to pack away." 2 weeks after Christmas, I stood in front of my grandmother's house, my house now, watching moving trucks pull away from the curb. Dean and Mom had finally cleared out, leaving behind only what the court documents specified as permanent fixtures. Gloria had supervised the whole thing, texting me updates that grew increasingly shorter as the day wore on. Almost done. Then, clear. And finally, it's yours. You know that moment when you're about to step into something huge, when your heart feels like it's trying to climb up your throat? That's where I was, key in hand, staring at the familiar red door. The lock turned with a smooth click that echoed in the January quiet. Inside, the house smelled different, sterile, like they'd scrubbed away every trace of themselves. Gone were Mom's potpourri bowls and Dean's financial magazines. The walls stood bare where their photos had hung, leaving lighter rectangles on the wallpaper like memories refusing to fade. My boots clicked against the hardwood as I moved through the front hall. Sunlight streamed through empty windows, catching dust motes that swirled in my wake. The rooms felt larger somehow, as if they'd been holding their breath all this time. A glint from the front window caught my eye. The snow globe still perched exactly where they'd placed it Christmas Day, my name carved into its wooden base facing outward like a quiet declaration. I remembered the summer afternoon Grandma had bought it. We'd been antiquing, and she'd spotted it tucked behind some old books. "Look, Elise," she'd said, "it's got a little library inside. Just like the one you're always dreaming about." The memory hit me like a physical thing, making my chest tight. I reached out, running my fingers over the carved letters of my name. Elise Marin Delaney. The full name she'd given me, the one that meant something. The gentle tick-tick-tick of the globe's music box mechanism was the only sound in the empty house. Word had spread fast after Christmas. Dean's termination from the bank made the local business pages, not front-page news, but enough to shatter the careful image he'd built. No more community leadership awards, no more speaking engagements at the country club, just silence and closed doors. Mom's fall had been quieter, but just as complete. Her church friends stopped calling. Her social committees found new members. Even her weekly bridge group disbanded rather than face the awkwardness of excluding her. The last I heard, she'd stopped attending services altogether. I moved through the house slowly, touching door frames and windowsills like I was reading Braille. Every room held some echo of the past. The dining room where Grandma taught me to polish silver, the kitchen where she'd let me experiment with her cookie recipes, the study where she'd write letters at her desk while I curled up in the window seat with a book. Standing in that study now, I noticed something odd. The window seat cushion was slightly askew. When I lifted it, there was a small envelope, the kind Grandma used to use for her personal correspondence. Inside, a single sheet of paper held just 3 lines in her distinctive handwriting. "My dearest Elise, sometimes the quietest voices carry the strongest truth. All my love, Gran." My hand trembled as I held the note. She must have hidden it here years ago, knowing someday I'd find my way back. Knowing I'd need these words exactly when I found them. I returned to the front room where the snow globe kept its silent vigil. The afternoon light caught its glass dome, making the tiny house inside glow like a beacon, like a lighthouse guiding someone home. "You can't erase the truth," I whispered to the empty house. "Not forever." The words weren't bitter. They weren't even angry anymore. They were just complete. Like the final period in a long story, like the quiet after a storm, like coming home. The house creaked softly, settling around me as if in answer. Outside, a car passed slowly, probably another neighbor hoping to catch a glimpse of the drama's aftermath. But there was no drama left to see. Just a woman standing in her grandmother's house, touching a snow globe that had finally found its way back where it belonged. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.